What's up, people? Trying to be as quiet as possible. I have 3 children and a wife that are currently sleeping. What you're about to see is a re-release of my review for 28 Years Later. I figured what better chance than now, considering 28 years later the Bone Temple just dropped. So this is really just a re-release when I did the review for 28 Years Later. I hope you guys enjoy it. I wasn't a big fan of the movie at first, but upon, review over the time, it's gotten better. And with the new one coming out, I'm very much excited. So I hope you guys enjoy this Redux, re-release, whatever you want to call it. Just, again, it's perfect for the time with the drop of 28 Years Later, the Bone Temple. So please do enjoy. What the fuck is up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Tony's Corner, a great girth segment. I'm your host, Tony, and today we're tackling the long-awaited 28 Years Later, the third installment in Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's iconic zombie franchise. It's been 23 years since 28 Days Later redefined the zombie genre with its fast-moving, infected, and gritty digital aesthetic. And of course, 18 years since 28 Weeks Later, up the ante. Now in 2025, Boyle and Garland are back with a star-studded cast, a bigger budget, and a bold vision. But does it live up to the hype? Spoiler alert, it's a mixed bag. So grab a seat, maybe a bow and arrow for those infected, and let's break down the positives and the negatives of 28 Years Later. Here we go. All right, for those who need a quick refresher, 28 Years Later is set nearly 3 decades after the rage virus ravaged Britain, turning it into a quarantined wasteland. The story follows a group of survivors on a small island connected to the mainland by a heavily guarded causeway. Our main character is Spike, a 12-year-old boy played by newcomer Alfie Williams, who, dude, amazing. He ventures to the mainland with his father, Jamie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, dude, kick-ass, and later with his really sick mother, Isla, played by Jodie Comer. Think the bike riders. Along the way, they encounter a mysterious doctor, right? Dr. Ian Kelson, portrayed by Ralph Fiennes, I never know how to say his name, and they face an evolved version of the infected, including some truly terrifying alpha infected. The film is directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland, and it's the first of a planned trilogy, with 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple already filmed and set for release in January. This movie has generated a ton of buzz, sitting at an 89% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, with audiences at 65%, showing it's a divisive film, dude. Critics are praising its ambition and visuals, while some fans feel it just strays too far away from the original's raw terror. So let's dive into what works and what doesn't, starting with the good stuff. First off, the acting in 28 Years Later is phenomenal. This cast is stacked, dude, and they do deliver. Alfie Williams, in his feature film debut as Spike, is the heart of the movie. He carries the emotional weight of a kid forced to grow up too fast in a post-apocalyptic world. His journey from like a naive boy to someone grappling with loss and survival is subtle yet powerful. Critics have called him a standout and remarkable, and I agree, yes, he holds his own against veterans like Jodie Comer and Aaron Taylor Johnson. Jodie Comer as Isla, Spike's mother, is heartbreaking, dude. She's battling a mysterious illness that nobody can fucking figure out, and her scenes with Spike are the emotional core of the film. You got to understand that Comer brings that clarity and depth to those moments where Isla, her confusion and pain, could have felt melodramatic. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Jamie, which is Spike's father, as I mentioned, with a mix of like tenderness and that flawed bravado. He's not a perfect dad, and that complexity adds layers to their family dynamic. Then there's Ralph Fiennes as Dr. Kelson, who shows up in the third act and steals the show, dude. He's described as like part monk, part madman, living in like a bone temple, literally. And his performance is both like eerie and warm. It's the kind of acting that elevates even the film's messier moments, dude. Trust me on that one. I do like his performance in this. I'll leave it at that. Now let's talk visuals. Because Danny Boyle and cinematographer Anthony Dodd Mantle, hope I said that right, are working some serious magic here. Shot largely on an iPhone with custom rigs, this film has a distinct look. wide sweeping shots of overgrown British landscapes mixed with that fucking high frame rate, dude. Those sequences that like echo the original's like raw energy, the widescreen visuals are stunning. Think fields reclaiming motorways, a broken shell sign, dude, and a tower of fucking skulls. That is like grim, kind of compassionate in a way, oddly compassionate. But the action sequences, especially in the first half, dude, it is pulse pounding. There's a causeway chase with an alpha infected, like a hulking, near invincible fucking beast, dude. That's one of the most tense moments I've seen in a horror film this year. That's because there's not very many good ones. But the use of like that bullet time-esque like POV shots when arrows hit their targets is immersive, dude. Even if it feels a bit video game-like at times. Now, the sound design and music, courtesy of Young Fathers, are also top-notch, shifting from nerve-rattling to soul-stirring. Boyle's punk rock spirit is alive with rapid editing, layered images, and basically footage of war, British history that add a mythic quality. It's bold, it's very experimental, and it's often breathtaking. It took me a minute to grow with the Young Father score. I'm more of a John Murphy guy who did the first two. But what sets 28 Years Later apart from typical zombie flicks? I think it's its ambition. It says something deeper. It's just not about flesh-eating monsters. It's about isolationism. It's about family and the weight of death in a broken world. The film setting, an island community cut off from a world that's moved on, feels like, a nod to British nationalism and nostalgia for simpler times. The film also explores the coming-of-age theme through Spike, who's forced to confront mortality and loss. His relationship with Isla is particularly moving because the parental love and like that childhood innocence is there between the two. There's a undercurrent about life, death, and what it means to survive in a world where the infected aren't just monsters, but sick people, literally. It's not subtle, but it's thought-provoking, especially in a genre that often prioritizes gore over ideas, if you ask me personally. Now, the infected themselves are like a highlight. I mean, Boyle and Garland don't just rehash the fast zombies from 28 Days Later. The virus has evolved, giving us slow lows, if you will, that crawl and eat worms, and like that terrifying alpha. They're literally like bodybuilders, dude, on fucking rage steroids. There's even a hint of intelligence in some of the infected, like the character Samson, dude. That adds an unnerving layer to the horror, dude. That little, you know what I'm talking about. The gore is visceral, though, dude. Heads are torn off, spines are ripped out, and while it's not for the faint of heart, it's creative and ties into the film's themes of life, death. These new concepts keep the franchise fresh, even if they don't always, gel very much with the story. And I'm talking about the tonal inconsistency. Let's get to the negative, because 28 Years Later isn't, dude. My biggest issue is the tonal inconsistency. The film is split into two halves, literally fucking halves, dude, and they feel like different movies. The first half is a thrilling, visceral survival horror with chase scenes and like gnarly zombie kills. It's 28 Days Later on steroids, but the second half slows down, turning it into like almost a melodramatic family drama. Spike and Isla's journey to find Dr. Kelson becomes like somber, contemplative, which some critics praise. There are moments where Boyle and Garland try to inject humor, like a scene where Spike, who's never seen an iPhone, comments on a photo of a woman with plastic surgery. But it feels out of place and kind of throws the tone off. The editing, while stylish, can be chaotic too, with jump cuts and like that archive footage that sometimes distracts from the story. It's like Boyle's trying to blend folk horror, social satire, and family drama, but it doesn't always like click. The plot feels scattered, like Garland had multiple ideas and like just didn't fully develop any of them. There's a coming of age story, like a family drama, and I get, like again, it's about life and death, but they're stitched together unevenly. The alpha infected plot thread, for example, it feels kind of underexplored, right? Like some of the characters, like Eric, the Swedish NATO soldier, they're introduced for like essentially humor, but then they're quickly killed off, like making their inclusion feel pointless, literally fucking pointless. Even the main characters, despite strong performances, they suffer from a weak script. Jamie's motivations are murky. Why is he so reckless with Spike? Isla's illness drives the second half too, but her decisions are frustrating and unclear. The film hints at like, a fascinating world building, like how the rest of the world has moved on while Britain's stuck in quarantine, but it brushes over these details, leaving you wanting more. Maybe that's the point with the sequel though, right? Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself on there, but that's just how I feel about it. And here we go, dude. the ending. The ending is a big sticking point. Without spoiling too much, I'll say it's weird, abrupt, and it feels like it just doesn't belong in this fucking movie. Critics have called it borderline comedic, and dude, I get why. It's meant to set up the sequel, but it sacrifices closure for a sequel. Like, it's confusing, dude. More than it is exciting. Fans on X have echoed this, with some like calling it like either stupid or a joke. Dude, I saw people compare this shit to like just not feeling impactful like 28 Days Later. It was a letdown, especially for a film that's nearly 2 fucking hours long, dude. 28 Years Later struggles with franchise expectations. That's kind of what I've jotted it down to. Fans of 28 Days Later love its raw, unrelenting terror, and while the film has scary moments, it's not as frightening as the original. It's more about emotional beats, which might alienate viewers expecting a straight up zombie thrill ride. The film also glosses over the ending, dude, of 28 Weeks Later, where the virus spread to Paris, which frustrates fans like me who wanted a global scope. As the first part of a trilogy, it feels like a setup rather than a complete story, which can feel you leaving kind of shortchanged. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot thrown at you with very little answers. So, where does 28 Years land? It's bold, ambitious, it takes risks, and I respect that. The performances, especially from Alfie Williams, dude, are outstanding. All of them, dude. And the visuals are a feast for the eyes. Okay, don't get me wrong. Boyle and Garland are clearly trying to evolve the franchise. They're weaving in themes of like isolation and family and mortality, like I've been bringing up, that resonate, right, in 2025. But the tonal shifts, underdeveloped plot, and the lackluster ending really do hold it back. It's not the raw terror of 28 Days Later or the polished action of 28 Weeks Later. It's something else. It's messy, dude, intriguing and imperfect. I'm giving 28 Years Later a worth checking out on streaming. It's a good film with moments of greatness, but it doesn't fully deliver on its promise, dude. If you're a fan of the franchise, you'll find plenty to enjoy, yes, but don't expect it to top the original. If you're new to the series, though, you might appreciate the fresh take, because you may feel lost without that context. However, either way, I mean, it's worth a watch, especially for those action sequences alone and that killer soundtrack. Like I said, it took a minute to grow on me, but once I saw the movie, it felt great. I'm curious to see where the trilogy goes with the Bone Temple. Will they iron out the kinks? Will we actually get more of Dr. Kelson? Fuck it, man. Who knows, right? But comment below. Let me know what you guys thought of 28 Years Later. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this review and you'd like to see other reviews like this, please make sure you find us on Rumble, YouTube, wherever you're watching this video, of course. We're also on social media. If you're more into politics, definitely check out the Great Girth podcast. Otherwise, stick around, folks, for another Tony's Corner that will be thrown at you very soon. And I will see you on the next one. Oh, and remember, folks, always, always stay rad.